Hi, I'm Frankie. Welcome to Business on the Rise. This podcast is your playbook to learn everything you need to know to launch, grow, and fund your brand. Today, I'm speaking to Amy Zheng, CEO and co-founder of Amazin Graze. This conversation was a masterclass on how to develop a local business and turning it into an international brand, distributed in 10 countries and a team of 100 people. This interview was raw, real, and honest, and I love the fact that Amy backs herself up and took bold risks. As an entrepreneur, it's making me rethink about how I look at my business, and perhaps I need to be a lot braver like Amy. Good morning here in KL and good evening in San Francisco.
Morning, Frankie. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. Amy, so Amazin Graze. Can you tell us a little bit more about your brand and your story, as well as tell me a little bit more about you and your business partner, Sabrina, and what's the dynamic like?
Yeah, no, thanks for opening it up. Both Sabrina and I have been business partners now for more than 9 years. We call each other our work wives. So
Love it.
We feel like we are married, just in a different capacity. She is earth when I am probably air and fire.
Wow.
She takes care of all our supply chain, our production, the nitty-gritties of what makes a business tick. And I go out there and I push the sales. I work with our marketing team. I look at expansion. I talk to all the external parties and all that. So I think that gives us a really good balance. I think I've found my yin to my yang. So very different backgrounds.
And tell us how you started Amazin Graze. Like, how did you conceptualize healthy snacks and why healthy snacks?
Mm-hmm. So more than 9 years ago, I was working in a very fast-paced corporate job. But I think I just wasn't feeling very healthy. I looked around me and my colleagues who were still pretty young back then, were all having gastric problems and all these problems related to lifestyle and diet. And so that was quite of a, wake up call for me to try to understand, well, how can I play a part in bringing, more wholesome, natural products to people that can help them live a healthier life. Mm-hmm. The other thing that inspired me was the fact that, how food in Southeast Asia, food in Malaysia is so rich and beautiful and with so much history. So we didn't want to abandon that. We just wanted to turn these key ingredients and flavors and culture and integrate that into wholesome ingredients like nuts and oats and whole grains. Mm-hmm. So that was really the starting point, which is how do we integrate everyday flavors and ingredients that we love into, products that are actually good for us.
Mm. So how did you actually meet, you and Sabrina, 9 years ago? And how did you guys come up with a plan to start the brand? Who was the chef in this, and who created the recipes at the beginning? Surely there's one.
Yeah, so we actually started off with 3 women. And so it was, very women-led in the very beginning. So we had a third co-founder, her name was Zheng. Mm-hmm. And Zheng back then had a huge industrial oven that we were like, this would be a great waste if we didn't use this huge industrial oven. So we started brainstorming, playing with different recipes. We wanted to work on nut mixes at first. We're like, okay, nuts are great. Nuts are the healthiest snack you can ever eat for yourself, unless you're allergic. But all the nuts we have in the market are very bland. It's just roasted almonds or salted peanuts. And so we just thought, our healthy nut and seed mixes can be much more interesting. And then Ching was the one that said, okay, by the way, can we just come up with some granola recipe? I saw these really cool granola recipes and we just tried that as well. And so I think it was just a bit of testing, a bit of hit and miss. The first recipes we developed really had great reception when we went to weekend markets. And so that really gave us fire and encouragement to keep doing it. So if we had made products that people in the beginning that people didn't like at all, I think we would have been very discouraged. And we would have probably not have put so much of our, time and effort and money into this.
All right. So you started the brand and you started selling it at bazaars, I'm assuming artisanal bazaars. And from that led to a lot more encouragement and bravery. And you guys decided to take a risk and say, okay, let's do this. Tell me a little bit more about that process and tell me a little bit more about Amazin Graze as a brand. How did you come up with that name? And how did you build the identity as you were, building the brand, but also selling it at the same time? How did you market it?
Right. So, what gave us the motivation to keep going and to kind of just take a big bet was just the sense that, we didn't see anything else that was similar in the market. There were no, really interesting health food brand that appealed to, my generation, which is, and I say my generation with a pretty big encompassing, umbrella. It's, all these men and women, especially women who really care about their health or realizing the importance of what they eat. They are usually very, very busy. They usually live in urban centers, and they want something convenient, fast, but also trustworthy and delicious at the same time, because you can't, especially Asia, you can't make products that don't taste good. That's really tough. So from the very beginning, we wanted our brand, Amazin Graze, to be really fun and colorful and rich. And that was really the key personality and DNA of the brand. And because we were like, well, healthy does not mean you need to be boring. Healthy doesn't mean you need to be bland and you need to kind of finish yourself. That was the initial thing we heard from everybody. People would tease other people who want to eat healthy or eating bird food. What are you doing? You're eating bird food. And it's just like makes people feel so bad.
Yeah.
Right? We have a culture that glorifies eating junk food.
Yes.
People high-five each other when they're eating fried chicken. No one high-fives each other now when they eat a salad or, nuts and whole grains. But anyway, so we just thought we really want to change the perception that healthy is boring and bland and just make it a beautiful brand that people just can't resist picking up the product if they see it. So it's supposed to incite excitement. It's supposed to incite love and joy in people and make them want to not just, consume it themselves, but also, give it away as a gift. And so gifting has become a huge part of our business as we are now, seeing, we've, for the last 8 years have, built up a real fan base and reputation as a gift of choice for people now.
I think you were saying healthy back then, I suppose 9 years ago, was still fairly new, but healthy now is like very sexy. And I think people at my age, I mean, I won't reveal, but over 40, we are a lot more discerning. We're very particular in what we put in our body just because physically and mentally we're changing. And so we become a lot more anal about what we put in our body. And so for me, and I think a lot of the people my age, we want to eat healthy. Do you feel now, currently 9 years later, the struggle is less to convince people to opt for healthier snacks?
It's still a struggle, I have to say. I think people are choosing between something that just looks conveniently indulgent, like, chips, for example. I would say the potato chips market is way bigger than the nuts market or even soda drinks. So yes, you're right. In the last decade, we've seen a huge change in people's awareness And I think the competition from junk food is stronger than ever. So I think it's just a really interesting market, right? The same person can wake up feeling like they need to eat healthy in the morning, but then end up eating ice cream in the evening. It's the same person. It's just that our choices have increased, and we tend to choose different things perhaps at different time of the day.
Mm. Do you think that will shift significantly as we evolve? Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, a shift, healthy taking over and coming out with a vengeance versus junk food companies.
Yes, I certainly hope so, Frankie. I
Yeah.
certainly hope one, that day will come where everyone realizes they need to eat more fruit and vegetables and whole grains, and less processed food. However, I just also see that our lives are getting more and more stressful, and where a lot of times people are eating in response to stress.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm in a mentally stressful state and I haven't slept very well, I don't tend to make very healthy choices for myself.
Says the person, who built a brand on healthy snacks.
I still think, oh my gosh, I want like pizza, or I want, and none of these things are bad. It's just that they don't make you feel very good afterwards. So I think the awareness of health has to encompass mental health as well. We need to watch out, not just about what we're putting into our mouth, but also how anxious and mentally healthy we are, so that overall we can make really good choices every day.
Absolutely. You're right on that. Now, Amy, I want to talk to you a little bit more about some of the challenges that you face when you were building the Amazin Graze brand back then, 9 years ago, and some of the challenges that you're seeing right now versus back then.
I think the challenges probably they exemplify that they're still there. They just bigger. I guess the challenges back then would be, we didn't have a solid customer base. We didn't have a solid distribution base. You couldn't find our products anywhere, and people don't know we have all these different products. And even today, I think that that's still a challenge. And I think one of the biggest strategic questions we had and still ongoing is just how many products should we expand into? How many categories should we be playing? The big FMCGs, they don't play with a lot of products and categories. But I think when you're a company that started off in Asia and Southeast Asia, and the market for your products are very small, you tend to, you feel the pressure to expand into other adjacent categories even more, so that you can expand your business faster. So I think that was definitely a huge challenge, and it still continues to be a challenge for us as we grow, which is just like strategically, how do we grow? Especially when your market is limited.
So, speaking of growing, you started off with yourself and 2 other partners. And now you are in 10 countries. You have a team of 100 people, predominantly very much women-led. First of all, is there a reason why it's predominantly very much a woman-led team? Number 2, how did you build and scale your company from just 3 partners and then now to 100 people? I mean, that scale is pretty significant. I'm really, really interested to know how you got to where you are now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking this question. I think, timing is everything. So let's look at the external factors, and we can look at internal factors. So external factors, I think we were at the right place at the right time. I think, as you said, awareness of health was picking up. People had higher incomes, discretionary incomes to spend on their food and on their, lifestyle. And we were just also picking up on the e-commerce growth at the moment. At that point, Shopee and Lazada didn't really exist, right? So we started building our own e-commerce from the get-go. That's also when social media started exploding. And so as a young brand, you could really pick up social media and use that to your advantage without having to spend a lot of money. So I think there were a lot of macroeconomic factors that enables the young brand to start with nothing, right? You don't need TVCs. You don't need to have billboards or, too many newspaper clippings, which are extremely expensive. You just need to be able to take a photo with your phone and be able to post. So I think these were really good factors. So, having the entering the right market at the right time. Then I think internally, because I wanted from the very beginning to grow, right? Like it was, I knew I wanted to make this a bigger business than like a household business, right? I just finished a stint 4 years with the Boston Consulting Group. I was consulting with, a lot of pretty big companies, and I loved company building. I loved organization building, and so leaving that and coming into my own business was an opportunity for me to put a lot of my passion and skill sets and experience into use. And so I think the goal from day one was to build and scale this business, but I've also met a lot of other entrepreneurs and, producers who are very happy just to be a smaller scale producer, and that's totally fine. So it just depends on what you want, but being clear about what you want and admitting that, right? Admitting that, hey, I want to build an FMCG business from day one. And I wanted to do it fast. I wanted to put our, throw our whole effort behind it. And so the decisions we made, which is like getting investors on board and, keep scaling up into bigger and bigger production centers and tapping into Singapore in our second year and try to get external distributors from other countries, going to trade shows, getting our products, scaling, having a team for e-commerce and then hiring a team for offline marketing, having a team for corporate sales. So it was all these channels, all these areas of growth. We got onto these channels very, very early on. Not that we were successful on every channel. I think that's a different conversation, which is like, should we have done all of that so quickly and internationally so quickly? I think that's a different conversation. But I think the fact is we were very ambitious and we tapped into all these growth channels and resources as soon as we can. And we kept hiring people, especially in our early stages, really fast, really rapidly as well. So, and then just like overall, we threw a lot of our time and effort into marketing and innovation. So I think that was a big bet for us. So we spent, a lot of resources on growth.
So how much, let's talk a little bit more about finance and investment. Because you were saying that you seeked for investors as well. So did you have investors? Were you successful in seeking those investment funds? And do you still have investors right now? How much did you and Sabrina, how much money did you put yourself? And how much was from investors?
Mm-hmm. So we don't have that many investors. We still do have investors, but we were very careful in fundraising. We didn't go overboard. We took our time and we actually, compared to other companies of a similar age or stage, we're probably have very little investment money compared to them. And that's probably because in the beginning, we all bootstrapped. We put in pretty much all our savings. I think we probably hands on deck. We probably have more than 600 to 800,000 of our own dollars, spending all our life savings basically from working the last couple of years. So that's a lot of money. We had to buy equipment. and we had to, hire people. We were not profitable for a really long time. And so, yeah, it took a lot. And so that's the other trade-off, right? Which is if you want to grow, you got to invest.
Yeah.
And if you want to invest, you got to either put your own money or you need to find investors.
Yeah.
So,
That must have
but
been.
we
Sorry, Karen.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. No. And then we got investors probably about 2.5 years into the business. We had 2 angel investors. And then I think more recently, in the last 2 years ago, we had another investor come on board. So we all together, we only have 3 investors.
Okay. You said 2.5 years into the business, you had angel investors. What's an angel investor for every one of us listening and trying to figure out what's that versus a normal investor?
Yeah. So angel investors are usually, they include your family and friends, or they include individuals, private individuals.
Right.
You probably put in a smaller amount, so they're not. It's not institutional money.
Right.
They'll anywhere between 5,000 to 50,000.
Wow.
Is probably a range for angel investors. So, or depends on where they're from. And obviously, if you're getting angel investors from Singapore, they probably might equivalently put in a bit more money, but it's usually a smaller ticket size.
Right.
It's not institutional money.
Yeah.
They're much more of a friendly party who just want to help you in the beginning. And obviously, they're still investors. They're not, they're looking for returns, but they're not like a venture capital firm or anything like that.
Got it. Okay. Very, very cool. And were you guys really scared when you put all your life savings into it and thinking like, oh my God, what have we done?
Yeah. I generally have a pretty high risk profile myself, meaning that, if I lose all that money, I think my plan B is to work. And since we're still, back in the days, we're still young, we had owning potentials. And so it wasn't as scary as opposed to, I think if you have later on in life where you have family and when you have, mortgages to pay, I think that would be much scarier. So I think doing it when we didn't have all these obligations was probably a I don't know, easier decision to make than one when, you are much older in life. So yeah, it probably felt a lot scarier back then than it did now. It's just like, okay, well, it's our baby now. So
It can sound really, really scary for entrepreneurs wanting to start a business and scaling a business, thinking, okay, so do we go all out or not? Do we sort of keep it conservative and still grow organically? So would you say that the more you invest and the more risk you take, the bigger the reward? And does it always happen that way? And
no, it doesn't. No, I think if you're not getting signs that your business is on the right track, you need to reevaluate. I think you really need to pull back the investment. Or I've also seen companies actually return the money to their investors, right? Instead of like using up all the money and then saying, "Oh, this concept doesn't work," they actually earlier on in the business go, "Actually, we're pivoting, or we're ending this business. Please take the rest of your money back." I think it's really good to be honest with yourself and with your investors and your team, especially your founder team. When is the right time to cut things short? And I think even with Amazin Graze, we've dabbled and considered and even begun, building up so many things. Like we had a smoothie bar, which I loved, by the way. We made acai bowls, we made all these amazing smoothies. And that, it wasn't a very viable business for us. Like it was more of a F&B, and we were FMCG and It was a very different skill set. We entered a lot of markets that didn't work for us either. So with every business, you're going to have to make bets and you're going to have to get feedback. And the key thing is to make decisions to close things as much as you want to open things.
wow, something I something for everybody to think about. I wasn't even aware of the fact that you can return the funds back to your investor if you feel that. What are some of the signs? You mentioned signs that it may not go the way you want it to be. What do you mean by that? And what should you be looking out for?
Yeah, I think if you have a group of consumers or customers that really truly rave about your product and you're just seeing really positive feedback from the market, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. I think, for example, our protein, when we launched that, within a few months, we knew we had something because the reviews and the numbers were looking really good. But with our smoothie bar, for example, we saw initial growth, a little bit of growth, and then it just tapered off really, really quickly. And although we knew, like, okay, if we found a better location, if we spent more investment on it, we could probably grow this. But the question is, it's a lot of focus that you're diverting to a very, very different business. And, our initial hypothesis that it was going to help the main business grow as well actually didn't materialize, right? So it didn't meet our initial hypothesis. So just the lack of excitement from the market and the fact that you're seeing a product, kind of have kind of like steady level growth and not very fast growth, especially in the beginning of the launch, is probably a good sign that you need to reevaluate this.
Right. Got it. Moving on to the distribution. You're in about 10 countries now. The US, you've just entered the US. How important is it for you to expand your distribution if you want to grow big and go global? Because some companies are just happy being a local brand, and because I think the market is big enough for them, but obviously the Malaysian market was not big enough for you to expand into 10 countries. How did you get there, and how did you decide which market comes first? And did you have your products first when you expanded? Do you have to have your products in that country first? Take me through the process of distribution.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And before you expand your distribution, my number one lesson is get your home market right. So if your home market is Malaysia or Singapore, or Philippines or Indonesia, make sure that you have a firm grip on that market before you seriously start investing in expansion. So that's one of our lessons, which is we probably expanded a little too fast to go international. And so we probably should have spent a bit more time growing our distribution and our market presence in Malaysia and Singapore first. So always get your home market right. And there's always more you can do in your home market in order to, to consolidate your position. Because I think when people meet us and when external distributors from other countries talk to us, it's because they saw our distribution in our home markets first. They've seen our products somewhere, they were traveling, people bought products for them. That's when they get interested and they reach out to you and express interest. So if you don't have a solid presence in your home market, it will be particularly difficult for you to grow. And your margins are usually the best in your home market because you're saving on logistics costs, you control a lot of your direct selling cost and marketing cost, and you just have a lot more scale, right, in your home market. So I always advise on making sure you get your home market right. And then in terms of growing overseas, I think finding the right partner is probably more important than which international market you enter.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean distribution partner? Having somebody in
That's right.
a local partner in each country?
Absolutely. You can't do it yourself.
Are they a shareholder in that particular country, or do they buy wholesale as a distributor?
Yeah, they usually buy wholesale. They've been in the distribution business probably for a few decades.
Mm-hmm.
They are, they're very established. So you work with them, you work with them with a long-term partner.
Mm-hmm.
You supply, the goods and the branding, and they get your products out into the market. So finding the right distributor for your products and your scale and your brand is going to be the most important determining factor. And how do you know if it's the right partner? You don't.
Right.
You just try and error sometimes. You can get some references in the market. You can look at what other products they distribute, but it really will be a bit of try and error for you to actually find who works.
Thanks for that. That's very honest of you to say that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the who is probably sometimes more important than the what.
Yeah. Got it. Amy, you've got 100 people in your team, but they're predominantly around Southeast Asia. And yet you're based in San Francisco. Like, how challenging is that for you work-wise, but also personally? Because I'm sure you have to work day and night and morning and afternoon. Do you get sleep at all?
Yeah. So I think after, the company Amazin Graze has been around for 9 years. And so although, we are still a startup, but we have built relevant teams and organizational structure and processes for the company to run smoothly, even if one of us is not physically there. So, and that's a really good hallmark or sign of a healthy company, which is it's not overly dependent on one single person. Yeah. And we've tried and error as well. We've had different organizational structure. We've outsourced certain things when we have also been increasingly outsourcing some of our things that we used to think we need to work in-house. And I think COVID has proven that remote working and outsourcing is viable, right? As long as you have like very good structure set up for reporting and updates, and everybody kind of knows what to do. So I think, having done all that, it is much easier for me to be physically placed in a completely different time zone and completely different country, with the vision that this is a trade-off. This is not perfect. I don't wish to be physically away from my team. However, to really get a market like North America right, you have to, one of the founders have to be there. To be physically, doing the business development, meeting the people, reaching out to people, being in the same time zone as some of my clients is really important here. Whereas I've built up enough of a team and history in Asia for that part of the business to be running, even if I'm not physically there. So that's the perfectly imperfect answer, right? It's not great. It's not ideal, but it is something that we're trying to make work given the vision of what we want to be. But in terms of sleeping, I absolutely get sleep. I get lots of sleep. I attribute that to having a great team, people who really take on, their roles and responsibilities with a lot of pride, with a lot of trustworthiness. And I basically just have updates with, key members once a week. And then the rest of the time I can work on other things. So it's not horrible. It's not perfect, but it's workable.
And it's possible because you're doing it.
And yes, I do. I do like what I do. And so, market building, brand building is definitely what I love to do. Yeah.
So how do you build your brand from Southeast Asia now moving to North America? I mean, that's probably a very different strategy in terms of branding and positioning, right? So how do you then, is there a different branding strategy for the US than it is in Southeast Asia? I mean, the culture is very, very different. And obviously the market size is also very, very different. What's that like?
Yeah. So funny enough, I tell people in a big country, you need to be niche. In a small country, you need to be everything.
That's a great tip.
So in Malaysia, I think Singapore, because our markets are much smaller, especially with regards to health food, we tend to be playing across, a lot of different categories in breakfast, in snacking, in now, sports nutrition and overall supplementation. Whereas in US, because the market is so big and there's so many competitors and so many different players, you really want to stand out and be known for one thing, or something. And so, and in the beginning, we don't have like a very, very firm answer of what that one thing is. And so we go in with some hypothesis of what we want to be known for, and we test that. We pitch using different angles. We almost do A/B testing. And so, that
What
gets
is
us
A/B
closer
testing?
Sorry?
What's A/B testing?
A/B testing is when, for example, you have two different images and you show one group image A, you want show one group image B,
Right.
and you get feedback which image, works better. And so for us, we're A/B testing, what is the USPs and the niche that we should be known for.
Mm-hmm.
The healthy food standard in the US is also very different.
Mm-hmm.
They're very particular about certain things like, being non-GMO and organic, or ingredients, sustainable sourcing. So in a way, it really challenges us to step up our standards even more.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of product improvement and development that's still needed. So I guess as we're preparing for US, we are still continuously, updating and changing our products so that it meets closer and closer the standard that we think, it needs to meet.
Got it. That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, it's almost like starting from scratch.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what do you think are some of the best decisions that you and Sabrina have made over the past 9 years? And what are some of the not so great decisions that you guys have made? And is there a cost, if there is any, to some of the not so great decisions? Did it cost a lot?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question, because I think we don't think about the good decisions we've made enough. We always think about the decisions that we probably should have made differently. But actually, for a company to have survived 9 years, and we're coming up to our 9th year, we must have had made, a bunch of more good decisions than bad decisions, to be at this. So, I'm reflecting on that as you're asking this right now. I think a lot of things, including, the people we've hired, a lot of the youngsters that we brought in who've made amazing contributions, whether or not they ended up still continue to be with us, I think that's not the point, right? I think a lot of our team, they come in for a few years, they learn a lot, we learn a lot from them, they make huge impact on their work, and then we send them off to another better place, right? That for them. Also, other decisions are things like doing everything ourselves from the beginning, which meant recipe development, sourcing, production, manufacturing, distribution, marketing, all of that, right? So we definitely learned the ropes of how to do all these different things within the FMCG ecosystem before we started considering which part to outsource. So that was extremely good. And then just entering markets like Singapore, and then tapping into new markets as we grew. Decision to really invest in corporate gifting and making sure marketing and excitement and creating that kind of excitement in the market, even though it took a lot of time and effort and money. So yeah, I think tons and tons of great decisions were made. And a lot of, decisions that I think, looking back, maybe I would have tried to do doing things differently. I wouldn't say they're bad decisions. I just think maybe I would have tried to do things differently if I had another business. For example, I do think rate of growth is one that people need to really be conscious about, and the pros and cons of that for your business. I think when we started Amazin Graze, there was a whole flurry of startups. It was like peak startup period where everyone wanted to build a startup. And so, everyone was fundraising and everyone was trying to grow like crazy. There wasn't a lot of companies that said, we just want to grow slower and not raise much money and be profitable early and be very sustainable, right? I think no one really spoke that language when we were growing Amazing Grace. And so, having known what I know now, I might maybe, be grow within our home market more first, emphasize more on profitability instead of going international too quickly. But that comes with a lot of like ego, that comes a lot of like youthful ambition. And as you get older, you definitely learn that sometimes slowing down is not a bad idea. So I think these are, that's probably one of my biggest kind of like, if I had to do things differently, what would I do?
You talk about slowing down potentially. Are you guys slowing down, or are you still going to go aggressive with more expansion and global expansion? Maybe look into Europe after you sort the US out. What's the plan?
Right. I guess we're not slowing down our ambition, but we're trying to focus our ambition more. So, instead of diversifying into too many things, now that we're in North America, we've only picked, 7 products in 2 categories to expand, and we have no desire to go into Europe. And our desire is to really focus on North America and get that right. And if we can get that right, then we're good. So, back to what I was saying is, maybe we should have stayed in our home market a bit more. And in this case, now that our home markets have more of a foundation, then the bet and the effort is now on a third market, which will give us the biggest kind of growth potential, as opposed to trying to divest into another 10 markets that we could be in. But it just doesn't make sense from like, kind of our energy or focus point of view.
Why did you say you have no interest in going to Europe? I'm assuming because it makes no business sense for you. But if for us, audience, hearing this, we're like, well, why doesn't it make sense for Amazing Grace? What's the thought process behind all of that?
Yeah, it's scalability.
Right.
So you generally, for scalability, you generally need a big market that speaks the same language with the same logo. And so, all your marketing, all your logistics, I mean, maybe not logistics, but all your marketing, all your product development, they need to comply with one law. And they can be broadcasted to 350 million people as opposed to Europe, which is very fragmented. Yes, you have, 50 million people living in one country and 60 million here and there, but they all speak the different language. Figuring out how, each ecosystem works is going to take you the same amount of time. So for the same amount of effort, you can either be trying to target 350 million people, or you can be trying to target 20 million people, but it's the same amount of effort.
Right. Got it. Good advice. Thank you for that.
Yeah. But of course, it depends on your product.
Yeah.
Where we have, our nuts and granola category are very big in the US, and they may not be very big in like, I don't know, Greece. So it also depends on your category and what product you're making. It might make sense for some people to go to Europe. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Amy, I want to know a little bit more about you personally. Who are you? And is health and wellness important to you? Does it affect you out at work with? Is health and wellness a big part of your life personally, and does it affect your work?
Yeah. So I came from an immigrant family. So we migrated from Shanghai to Australia when I was very young. I think the feeling of being alien or different, or that I needed to prove, my value in a very different culture and society, that happened very, very quickly in that very young age. So I think, I was very driven, ambitious, just to try to, feel that I exist and feel that I am accepted, even within, a society that may not be embracing of who I am from the very beginning. So I think for most of us, even, especially entrepreneurs, we all have a different story, but the storyline is very similar, which is, we want to prove our worth. We want to um, demonstrate what we're capable of. And that's a very, some people will be like, yeah, that's insecurity. But at the same time, it's a very beautiful human endeavor. Um, we want to, live a life of worth, of value, of impact. So that's probably kind of like what drives me. But as I built Amazing Grace, I think, just
Bye,
seeing
Amy.
the impact that it has on our customers, but also on our team, especially the young people and the young women that we work with, and seeing that them grow and seeing that they are learning and they're creating amazing impact and they're doing incredible things just makes me feel really proud. And so that's probably one of my biggest motivators for why I love what I do, because, we started off from nothing. We had nothing. It was a bunch of young women that put their life savings onto a business that didn't have like any traction or didn't even have a valid market. And the fact that we have built this over the years to something that, resembles more of a more established household name, at least in the home markets that we're in, and now on our way for, expansion in a completely different continent, is just, it's just really rewarding and continuous way in which we're able to show, to demonstrate creativity, to demonstrate our inspiration in the world. So yes, I think that's really important to not just me, but also my business partners and our team.
Mm. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do personally, health and wellness wise?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, I've always been pretty active, so love running and cycling and, hiking. But I think since COVID, I've definitely spent a lot more time in nature. So hiking is a must, especially on a weekly basis if I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I also been getting into more journaling and meditation. And so, I know that most of the activities I used to do tend to be pretty active, but I think also having enough time to sit in silence and listen to yourself and being able to have deep reflections on who I am, and what my purpose is as important as the physical active elements of health. I love to cook. I love to, go to farmers market, especially now that I'm in San Francisco. I get to, see a lot of fresh products. A lot of joy in eating good food. I take a lot of joy in selecting good food. I love all my cuisines. I love, not just Asian cuisines, but also Middle Eastern and Californian and, Northern African, so there's a lot of amazing food out there. So I think over the years, I've also realized eating healthy is not just, eating fruits and vegetables, but actually being able to listen to your own body and honoring what it is your body needs at the moment, whether it's a salad or pizza, and not demonizing any food as necessarily bad. So following a lot of intuitive eating now. So rather than calorie restriction or whatever it is, it's, all of that I think is based on a sense that we don't trust our bodies. We don't trust our bodies to need and ask for what it needs, right? But if we trust our bodies and listen to it and go, okay, what is it that I need right now? Um, do I need a bit more carbs? Do I need a bit more fat? Do I need a bit more iron? And how can I honor my body and give it what it needs? Do I need to rest right now? Do I need to be more active right now? I think all of these things are becoming, more and more obvious to me, that it's about listening to our bodies and really trusting our intuitions, that it is there to protect us and give us what we need, as opposed to, continuously punishing ourselves and denying ourselves what it is that we need.
I love that. I really, really, really love that. And I love how you're so articulate and very, very clear and very, very honest. Amy, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for all the valuable tips and for sharing your journey with us, the ups and the downs. And again, being very, very honest and earnest about it. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Your questions have been amazing. They really allowed, me to kind of dig through some of the, essence of what it means to, be part of Amazin Graze, but also like sharing that with elder audience who hopefully will take a bit of inspiration and don't give up on whether it's their own personal health or their own personal entrepreneurial journey. So thank you for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to meet you in person soon.
Me too. I absolutely enjoyed it. And as an entrepreneur myself, you've definitely given me a bit of a nudge and a push and some motivation now to think things a little bit different. So thank you so much. I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Amy. Thank you for tuning in to Business on the Rise. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel.